Cool. So, like I said, my name is Tom McCambridge. I'm an incoming fourth-year student studying marine biology with a minor in chemistry. And this summer, I had the awesome privilege of living down in Port Orford at the Port Orford field station and working on this thing we call Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve Interpretation. And so my mentor was Tom Calvanese, the field station manager. And just really quick, I wanted to give some acknowledgements right off the bat. First of all, of course, MSI, I would not be here without you. And Port Orford Field Station, especially Tom, who's been an awesome mentor throughout all of this. And both the Gem Lab and Pisco Lab, who gave me awesome opportunities to work with them on their research. But you'll hear more about that momentarily. So this internship was really focused around two central problems. The first one being with science in general and how the way people consume science is not the way people consume media usually. And it's usually kind of inaccessible for people, not designed for everyone to understand at first. So there's on the right is a couple titles about research in the Marine Reserve that, don't really connect with what people normally would consume on a day-to-day basis. And the other issue is with the reserve and its visibility in the greater community. So up at the top, there's the Mambari Instagram page with over 60,000 followers. And that just kind of shows people care about what's going on in the ocean and they care about research and they want to know. So the question is really just getting what we're doing out there. And even when compared to a very comparable institution, like all of you up at Hatfield, we have a much smaller engagement on social media, even though we're doing similar things. Hatfield, of course, is a bigger institution, but we're doing amazing things down here and people want to see it. It's just a question of getting them the resources. So a central mantra for this whole experience was that you have to have experiences in the reserve in order to interpret those experiences and then get those experiences to other people and let them know what's going on here. So I'll go through some of the experiences that I had the awesome privilege of being part of. So the first was the whale team. So that is the GEM Lab, the Geospatial Ecology of Marine Megafauna. They come to Port Orford because there are resident gray whales here that cut their migration short and end up right outside of Port Orford in the water here. And they go out into their habitat because they go so shallow here, and they can kayak and collect samples of their food. They can take videos underwater to see what it's like. And they also observe from the cliff, from a high up spot, and they can track whales as they move through the nearshore waters. So I was able to be the alternate, the substitute for their kayak team when someone needed a day off. Because as awesome as it is, kayaking every day at 6 a.m. gets kind of rough. So that was fun learning how they set up their stations, how they sample those stations, and following that process through. Even though I wasn't part of the whole thing, I was able to observe that all and then take that and try to share that. And the other part of this, as you can see on the bottom, the GoPro recovery. So whenever you're working with things in the ocean, there's always the chance that those things stay in the ocean. So sometimes when they drop their GoPro, it would get stuck in the rocks. And that picture on the right is me diving down to get the GoPro off the bottom. A very unexpected, but very cool part of the job. And learning how they go through the process of filling out float plans and making sure it's all acceptable. So yeah, that's the experience with the whale team. There's also a large emphasis on local fisheries. Because when you think about what a marine reserve is, it's literally a space where no one is allowed to fish. So of course there's going to be an interplay between the fishing community and the reserve, and there's a lot of public perception that goes into it. And it was interesting to learn that they do have a historic connection, and because both sides, both scientists and fishermen, want this to be sustainable. Nobody doesn't want a sustainable business. So it's interesting to learn how those two parties kind of interact with each other. And also through the Port Orford Sustainable Seafood Company, which actually shares the field station space. Essentially, what would be called the garage is their fish processing plant. where they dissect, well, fillet all their fish to sell, but it's basically a fish dissection. And so you learn a ton about the local species and what they're eating and the difference in size and where they're getting fish. So a lot of amazing, scientific information is coming out of the economic fisheries. So that's a super interesting part of what's going on here in Port Orford, because there is such a huge fishing community, and it's so economically reliant on the fish here. And also, speaking of marine resources, there's a kind of budding emphasis on aquaculture down at the port. So that center picture there is actually at the port of Port Orford, and it's urchins. So they'll go and get urchins that don't have what they call the urchin meat yet, that is commercially viable, and then they'll grow it, farming dulse right next to it, just off to the right of that picture. There's big dulse tanks where they're farming the food for the urchins. And this is important because urchins have kind of wide-ranging effects on the habitats that they're found in, because they can bloom in huge numbers, like this picture on the left. I keep getting left and right mixed up. The picture on the left, and they can just absolutely cover the floor, and they feed on kelp, which is a huge problem because kelp is such a habitat-forming structure and super necessary for the local fish. And so basically through the Oregon Kelp Alliance, which my mentor Tom is super involved in, they're trying to create a taste for urchins and kind of form this interdisciplinary way of fighting this problem through, using economics and making a taste for the urchins, and eventually just making it more sustainable for kelp. And then I also was able to work with the Pisco Lab, who comes here a few times a year during extremely low tides, and they have a bunch of long-term sampling within the intertidal zone. If you've been around, you've heard a bunch about this from Chantel already. So they do measuring mussel beds, they measure predation on mussels by sea stars, and they also have long-term disturbance studies where they'll kind of scrape a very small area clean and be able to study how that area is repopulated with life over time. And a lot of these projects have been going on for over 10 years. And it's just, they're just building up a bigger and bigger data sets because this is such a dynamic area and there's so much to be studied about it. And also a lot of the community engagement with this internship came through the intertidal zone. We organized this event called a BioBlitz, where we basically encourage as many people as possible to download this app called iNaturalist, and then go out into the intertidal zone, take a picture of an animal, and then this app has software that will identify that plant or animal. It's a super awesome app. If you don't have it, I highly recommend it. But basically that was just a way to get people engaged in science, people out in the intertidal outside, while also adhering to COVID restrictions and not, gathering a big group of people together for a symposium or like a, bigger event where we go out together into the intertidal. And there's also a pH sensor out in the intertidal zone. That wasn't a huge part. I just went out a couple times and replaced it, but it's interesting to see that that's going on here. There's a lot of simultaneous research going on, as you can probably tell already. So the real question, what I'm here to do, is figuring out how to reach people without being able to gather people together, like we said. So you've already heard a lot about it from the other interns. It's similar stuff. So we're going through social media platforms and making online content like videos. So first of all, I'll talk about social media a little bit. We have a pretty small presence on social media, like I mentioned earlier. We started when I got here at 214 followers on Instagram, which was the main one I focused on. But by the end, by creating, high quality, fun to look at, fun to read content and using, hashtags and whatnot, we were able to grow up to 281. That picture is not quite accurate to now. It's just growing so fast. But that's about a 30% increase in engagement on social media. And that's awesome. 281 doesn't seem big, but the population of Port Orford is like 1,100. So that's like 25% of the people who live here, and people coming through, and it's only growing. And also, the other major part was YouTube. So I tried to make a video that synthesized all of these things sort of together and build a narrative. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second and actually show the video. But YouTube, we were able to go from 2 to 12 subscribers, which is a 500% increase. But more about the video. Basically, what I was trying to highlight is what makes the Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve so special. Because it's so abundant with life, and if you don't have the full background of understanding the oceanography here and the bathymetry and all of the different types of habitats, it's hard to understand why it needs to be protected. So really what I was trying to do is, like I said, build a narrative, start from the bottom, grow it into where it is now ecologically. And so, of course, showing the video is going to be 1,000 times better than what I could say about the video. So I will send screen sharing back over to folks at Hatfield so we can watch it. It's about 4 minutes, so get cozy. And yeah, thanks. I'll be back in a little bit. Let me know if there's anything I need to do on my end.
This is the Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve. On the southern coast of Oregon, just south of the small town of Port Orford, you can find this small 3-square-mile reserve and attached marine protected area. But what makes this area so special? Well, it's actually a whole bunch of things, and it all starts with the rocks. The large rock formations provide structure for many animals and plants to attach to and live inside of. In the spring, strong winds cause nutrients from the bottom of the ocean to be driven up towards the surface in a process called seasonal upwelling. These nutrients act like a fertilizer in the shallow water. These nutrients are used by phytoplankton, which spawn in large volumes and provide the base of the food web. The nutrients are also used by many types of marine algae that grow on the rocks. Probably the most important of these is bulk kelp, the world's fastest growing plant. When conditions are right, they can grow up to 10 inches or 25 centimeters in a single day. Bulk kelp basically acts as the trees of an underwater forest. Feeding on the phytoplankton, you can find zooplankton, which are actually many different types of animals. They can be mysid shrimp, amphipods, larvae of larger animals, or many other species. These zooplankton provide food for tons of different animals, ranging from tiny crabs nestled in the rocks all the way up to the giant gray whales that migrate through nearshore waters in the summer. Many animals attach themselves to the rocks, including the bright green and blue anemones. These animals stick to the rocks and catch prey such as crabs, zooplankton, or fish with their stinging tentacles. Large colonies of mussels also attach to the rocks and filter out algae from the seawater. Colorful sea stars can be found moving slowly along the rocks using their tube feet and eating the mussels and other attached creatures. In the water, small fish use rocks and kelp to hide from the larger predators in the open ocean. They can form large schools like these smelt. Of course, there are fish that eat these fish. One example is the lingcod, which lays on the bottom and ambushes fish as they pass by. And what would Redfish Rocks be without the redfish? Many species of rockfish can be found here, and many of them are bright red, like the vermilion rockfish. Some species of rockfish can live to be up to 150 years old. Because they live so long, they need to be protected so that they can get old enough to reproduce before they are fished. The old female fish are especially important because they produce exponentially more offspring each year. This is only a fraction of the life that can be found in these waters, not to mention the land animals that depend on marine life. Many species of birds feed on life in the ocean. Brown pelicans, seagulls, and black oyster catchers are just a few of the birds that can be found on these beaches. Altogether, these creatures create an incredible mosaic of life that needs to be protected, and that's just what the Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve is doing. Thanks for watching.
All right, I'm back. Thanks everybody for watching. Let me pull up my slides again really quick. So I just want to say another quick thank you, especially about the video, to Peter from Subvision Productions and also Oregon State Productions. They were awesome in helping kind of bring it to a new level with, you know, actually high quality underwater footage and drone footage. But yeah, thanks. Any questions?
Tom, are you able to see the chat?
Yes, let me pull it up real quick. Where has the chat gone? You have to zoom out of the picture. Yeah. Let's see. There you go. Yes. Great. Yeah. John Chapman. Hey, Dr. Chapman. Great video. Now what? Fantastic question. Hopefully more videos. I think that kind of style of video is applicable to a lot of different situations. We've kind of tossed around the idea of doing something similar for other reserves or something like that. But it turns out it takes a long time, but I really like making videos. So hopefully the answer to that question is more videos. Did you shoot the footage you used or was it given to you? It's a mix of both. All of the good footage was given to me, all of the drone and underwater stuff. I shot the mussels and the anemones and maybe another one, but mostly given to me, which was awesome. Really helped to bring it to another level. The animation is super effective in helping the viewer follow along and understanding. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's what I was kind of hoping for. So that means a lot. Thank you. maybe someday. Maybe someday I'll auction off some work. Yeah, true. Are there any that you want to do more of or see yourself pursuing more of in your career? That's a great question. Honestly, I think the most, eye-opening in terms of career was the video / communication side of it. I think that is kind of where I see myself. It's what I feel like I can do the most in, kind of, is communicating the science going forward. And hopefully, keep some toes in field work because it's awesome. But yeah, I think communication is a huge thing I see in the future of the career, at least. Thanks.
Hey, Tom, it's Jack here in Newport.
Hey.
How'd you get to be such a good artist in just that short internship?
I was drawing sea creatures long before the internship. That's nothing new. But I definitely, yeah, there's just a lot of beautiful creatures to draw around here. So I think that was the main inspiration there. But thank you.